All right, movie fans, welcome back. I'm fascinated by movies, and one thing I've always wondered about is why some just totally explode at the box office and others kind of fade away,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm not just talking about good movies versus bad movies. Like, what if there's like a secret ingredient, an emotional code that's kind of baked into the story itself
Ooh, interesting.
that makes it a hit?
Okay.
Well, that's what we're going to be looking at today in our deep dive into this paper called The Data Science of Hollywood, using emotional arcs of movies to drive business model innovation in entertainment industries.
Wow, that's a mouthful, but it sounds fascinating.
It is.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that emotional journey, because that's what the researchers really focus on in this paper.
Right.
And they call them emotional arcs. And apparently there are 6 basic shapes
It's basic shapes.
that like almost every movie fits into.
Okay. I'm intrigued already.
Yeah.
So how do these emotional arcs actually work? Like, what do they look like?
Well, think about it this way. If you graphed out the emotional ups and downs of like the main character in a movie over the course of the film, that line would create a shape.
Oh, okay.
And that shape is the emotional arc.
I see. I see. So it's kind of like a visual representation of how the character's emotions change throughout the story.
Exactly. And you know who else thought about this? Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh, wow. The author of Slaughterhouse-Five.
Yes, and he actually coined the term
Interesting.
emotional arc, and he would draw these shapes, and he even said, like, stories are like graphs, and people love graphs.
That's so cool. I love that he saw that connection between storytelling and visual representation.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've got these 6 basic shapes for pretty much every movie ever made.
Yes.
Could you give me some examples? Like, what are some of these shapes?
Yeah. So one that I think everybody knows is like the rags to riches.
Okay, classic underdog story.
Yeah. So like Slumdog Millionaire would be a great example.
Oh, yeah, perfect example.
Yeah.
He goes from the slums of Mumbai to winning a fortune on a game show. Love it. What else? What other shapes did they find?
Well, there's the total opposite of that, which is the riches to rags.
Oh, okay, so like a tragedy.
Yes, like The Wolf of Wall Street.
Ooh, yeah. Excess and bad decisions leading to a downfall.
I can see that.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got the rise and we've got the fall. Are all the shapes this straightforward, though?
Well, some are a little bit more complex.
Okay.
So, for example, there's one called Man in a Hole.
Man in a hole. All right, I'm picturing like a literal hole in the ground.
Well, it's kind of like that. It's like the character starts out and then something happens and they just hit rock bottom.
Oh, okay.
But then they fight their way back up.
So it's like a fall and then a rise.
Yes. And a great example of that is The Revenant.
Ooh, with Leonardo DiCaprio battling the elements and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see how that one would really resonate with people, that idea of overcoming adversity.
Yeah, for sure. So another one is Icarus.
Icarus. Okay, so like flying too close to the sun.
Yeah, it's that kind of meteoric rise and then a devastating fall. Ooh, that's a good one. So like a cautionary tale, almost.
Yes, and a good example of that is The Social Network.
Oh, yeah. Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, all that success, but at what cost?
Right.
All right, that's 4 down. What are the last 2 shapes?
So we have Cinderella, which is a little bit more nuanced than just the fairy tale.
Okay.
It's a rise, then a fall, and then another rise.
Ooh, a double rise.
Yeah.
Interesting. So like a comeback story.
Yes, and a good example of that is Pretty Woman.
Oh, yeah. Julia Roberts' classic. She goes through some tough times, but ultimately finds love and happiness.
Exactly.
Okay, so one more shape. What's the last one?
The last one is Oedipus.
Oedipus. Now that sounds intense.
It's the most tragic one.
Oh,
like,
really?
it's a downfall, then like this brief glimmer of hope, and then just another fall, usually like a final fall.
Wow, so no happy ending there. What kind of movie would fit that shape?
A good example is The Godfather.
Ooh, yeah, Michael Corleone. He rises to power but becomes so corrupted along the way.
Huh.
All right, so we've got our 6 shapes: rags to riches, riches to rags, man in a hole, Icarus, Cinderella, and Oedipus.
Yes.
But here's the big question. Which one brings home the most bacon at the box office?
Well, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you might be surprised to hear that the champion, the emotional shape that seems to just like rake in the money, is Man in a Hole.
Really? The one where the character goes through the most suffering? That's so interesting.
I know it seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, you'd think people would want to go to the movies to escape their problems,
Right.
not relive them.
Right.
But the date is pretty clear on this.
Yeah.
Man in a Hole movies make bank. They earn way more than films with any of the other emotional shapes, even when you account for things like, budget and genre.
So it's not just that they happen to be bigger budget movies,
Right.
or that they fit into a particular genre.
There's something about that Man in a Hole structure that really draws people in.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
They don't actually get the highest ratings.
What? So people are flocking to see them, but they're not necessarily loving them. That does make a lot of sense.
I know. It's like, what's going on here?
It's a real head-scratcher.
Yeah.
So if it's not about pure enjoyment, then what is it about these man-in-a-hole movies that makes them so successful?
Well, that's what we're going to try to figure out.
All right, I'm hooked.
Let's
Let's dive deeper.
Let's do it. So we know Man in a Hole is like the box office champion, but you were saying that any of these 6 emotional shapes could be successful
Yeah,
if you pair it with the right genre and the right budget.
exactly. It's all about finding the right recipe,
Okay.
the right combination of elements. And to illustrate that, let's look at some examples
Okay.
from the research. So remember those riches to rags stories?
Yeah, the tragedies.
Right. Well, those can actually do incredibly well at the box office.
Really?
If they're paired with a big budget.
Okay.
And genres like historical drama or epic survival stories. It's like those grand tales of downfall and loss with high stakes and a really lavish production design. They just seem to resonate with audiences.
Yeah, so even though it's like a downer ending,
Right.
the scale and the spectacle kind of make up for it.
Yeah, exactly. Think about Titanic, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everyone saw that movie.
Huge hit.
It's a classic riches to rags story, right? This love story set against this massive historical tragedy. And the combination of that emotional arc with the grand scale of the production and the visual spectacle,
Yeah.
it just drew massive crowds.
It did. And the budget for that movie was insane.
Oh, yeah.
Even for back then.
Astronomical.
Yeah.
So the scale of the production, those incredible visual effects, the historical setting,
Yeah.
it all worked together to make that tragic love story into a box office phenomenon.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because there's something about those big historical tragedies that kind of like captures our imagination.
Absolutely. They tap into something primal, this sense of awe and wonder, and also maybe a little bit of fear. Like, this could happen to us.
Yeah, that's true. What about some other examples? Are there any other films that kind of fit that same mold?
Well, The Revenant, which we talked about earlier as a man-in-a-hole story.
Right, with Leo in the wilderness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it also has elements of riches to rags.
Oh, okay.
You could argue that Hugh Glass,
Yeah.
his character kind of starts out in a relatively good place.
Yeah.
He's got a son, he's got a purpose, and then he experiences just this series of devastating losses and hardships.
He really goes through it.
Oh, he does, before ultimately achieving a form of redemption. So you can almost say it's like a hybrid emotional arc.
Interesting. Like a blend of a couple of different shapes.
Exactly. And again, that film had a really substantial budget,
Yeah.
which allowed for just breathtaking cinematography.
That's a beautiful movie.
Oh, yeah, and the really realistic depictions of that harsh frontier environment. So that combination of the emotional intensity, the visual spectacle, and the genre. It's a genre that's known for its kind of gritty realism.
Yeah.
And that all came together to make it a huge success.
Okay, so those are some examples where like a big budget really enhances the emotional impact
Right.
of the story. But are there cases where a big budget can actually work against a film?
That's a great question. And the research actually suggests that Icarus movies, those rise and fall stories,
Okay.
might actually suffer when they have a really massive budget.
Interesting. Why would that be?
It's kind of a head scratcher, but the data suggest that audiences might be less forgiving
Okay.
of a high-flying story that ends in a crash
Yeah.
when there's just tons of money on the line.
It's like you had all this money.
Right.
Why couldn't you give me a happy ending?
It might feel that way.
Yeah.
There's definitely a psychological element at play there. One example that comes to mind is The Lone Ranger,
Okay.
which was this big-budget action-adventure film.
With Johnny Depp?
Yeah, released back in 2013. And it had all the makings of a blockbuster.
Yeah, it did.
Huge stars, big action sequences, amazing special effects, but it totally flopped.
It did. I remember people were shocked.
Yeah, and it didn't really get great reviews either.
I vaguely remember that.
And critics and audiences alike seem to kind of agree that the film's Icarus arc, with its themes of ambition and betrayal and ultimately failure,
Yeah.
didn't quite justify the enormous budget. It's like the spectacle couldn't make up for the lack of emotional payoff.
Interesting. So it's kind of a cautionary tale for filmmakers.
Yeah.
Just because you have a lot of money
Right.
doesn't mean you can throw money at any story and expect it to be a hit.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance, the right combination of emotional arc, genre, and budget.
Yeah.
And, that's where things get really interesting when we start to talk about this idea of personalized entertainment
Okay. Yeah.
and the potential of data science to really fine-tune these elements,
Okay.
to create movies that resonate with us on an even deeper level.
All right, so let's get into that. Let's talk about the future of filmmaking. So we've talked about those 6 emotional shapes of storytelling, how budget and genre play a role, and even the idea of like personalized movies made just for us.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, where does this all lead? Like, what does the future of movie making actually look like with all this stuff going on?
Well, I think we're kind of standing at the edge of a whole new era in entertainment.
Okay.
You know, the old way of doing things where studios just pump out those big budget blockbusters.
Right, aimed at everybody.
Aimed at the widest possible audience. That's being challenged
Yeah.
by things like streaming on-demand content and, you know, this growing desire for personalized experiences.
It does feel like things are changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is this the end of Hollywood as we know it?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
You know, Hollywood has always been about adapting and innovating. Think about it, the shift from silent films to talkies.
Oh, yeah.
The rise of CGI, the emergence of the whole superhero genre.
Yeah.
The industry has a real knack for reinvention.
Okay, so you're saying data science and personalized entertainment, this could be the next big thing.
Exactly. It could be like the next chapter in a Hollywood story.
Right.
And instead of seeing these advancements as threats,
Right.
Hollywood could embrace them as opportunities to connect with audiences
Yeah.
in a way more meaningful way. Imagine studios using data not just to predict box office numbers, but to craft films that resonate with specific demographics,
Okay.
explore really niche genres, and maybe even challenge societal norms.
So instead of those big one-size-fits-all blockbusters, we could have a way more diverse and exciting kind of cinematic landscape.
Precisely. Films for every mood, every interest, every individual.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a second. Wouldn't all this innovation require like massive investments in technology and data analysis? Would studios really be willing to take that gamble?
Well, it's true. There would be costs involved.
Yeah.
But think about what's already happening. Streaming services are pouring money into data-driven personalization right now, as we speak. And as technology gets even more sophisticated and accessible, those costs are probably going to go down.
Okay.
And that can make it easier for even independent filmmakers to use data to create really compelling and targeted content.
So instead of being a barrier, data science could actually level the playing field
Exactly.
and give more creators a voice.
Precisely. It could democratize storytelling, allowing filmmakers from all sorts of different backgrounds and perspectives to share their unique visions with the world. Imagine algorithms helping connect those stories with the audiences that are most likely to appreciate them.
That's really cool, creating like a truly global and interconnected cinematic experience.
Exactly.
That's amazing. But I do have to ask, if data starts shaping the movies we watch, will we even know what we truly enjoy anymore? Could we become so reliant on these algorithms that we lose our own sense of taste and discernment?
That's a great question, and you've hit on a really important point. It's about finding that balance between personalization and discovery. We don't want to end up in these echo chambers of entertainment, only consuming content that reinforces what we already believe
Right.
and what we already like. The key is to use data as a tool for exploration,
Oh, okay.
a way to kind of broaden our horizons and expose ourselves to stories and perspectives that we might never have encountered otherwise.
So using data to enhance our viewing experience, not dictate it.
Exactly. Imagine a streaming service that not only recommends movies based on what you've watched before,
Right.
but also suggests things that challenge your assumptions, expand your understanding of different cultures, or introduce you to genres you never thought you'd enjoy. That's the kind of future I'm really excited about.
I am too, but let's be honest, there are always going to be people who just resist change, who think data has no place in like the magical world of movies.
Yeah.
What would you say to those folks?
I understand their concerns.
Yeah.
You know, art is often seen as this pure thing
Right.
that defies analysis. But remember, data is just a tool. It can't replace the human heart, the spark of creativity, the passion that fuels great storytelling. But it can enhance it, it can amplify it, and it can help connect those stories with the people who will cherish them most.
So it's not about replacing human creativity,
Right.
but empowering it.
Exactly.
That's such a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey. We've uncovered those hidden emotional codes of Hollywood,
We have.
explored the potential of personalized entertainment, and like kind of glimpsed a future where data science and human creativity work together to create this world of cinematic wonder. It's a really exciting time to be a movie lover.
It is. And the most exciting thing is we're really just at the beginning.
Yeah.
As technology advances and we understand the human mind better,
Yeah.
the possibilities for storytelling are truly limitless.
That's so cool. That's a great note to end on. As you settle in for your next movie night, think about the emotional arc of the story, the power of genre and budget, and the potential for data science to reshape the landscape of entertainment. Who knows? Maybe you'll even be inspired to create a story of your own. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.